If I could have your attention, please. Okay, welcome. My name is Jim Garrett, and I have the pleasure of being serving as the director of the Garrett Museum of Art, and we're thrilled that you're here. I did a radio interview recently, and during the interview, they started out the interview asking me if I could describe in one word what bringing the Edward Curtis exhibit meant to this area, and I said monumental. And I really believe that, and not just for Garrett and DeKalb County, but actually I think all of Northeast Indiana. So we are thrilled to have it. It was a really monumental undertaking, and if I could just for a moment, could we give a round of applause for Angela Green, who's the one that got this. This was a huge effort, and it did take some monetary effort on a lot of our parts, and we need to thank our sponsors. If it wasn't for the James Foundation, and we were going to have a couple of representatives there, but because of some issues, they couldn't be here today. But the James Foundation gave us the startup money to start this program for the next couple of years. We started talking about 2 years ago of what we could do and how we could make a difference for the community in Northeast Indiana. And we decided to start a major initiative and bring in at least 2, sometimes 4 national artists or national exhibitions a year. It really is a huge undertaking, and without the James Foundation initial support, we would not have been able to do that. They've actually given us enough to get through next year, so we're thrilled about that, and we'll start working beyond that. We also need to thank the Three Rivers Federal Credit Union for their part in this. They have sponsored this show very good. And we appreciate their additional support for this exhibition. And then Zach Leitner of Leitner Law Firm, who wanted to be here but can't be here today, he put up some funds for that. So thanks to everyone who did this. This is the first show that we have in this project that we're doing, and we think we're just so thrilled. Me as a photographer, to have the shadow catcher's images here is beyond what I can describe to you. So we appreciate the support that we got from the James Foundation, Three Rivers Credit Union, and Leitner Law Firm for helping bring this together. If you are interested in knowing more about this initiative or would like to assist and sponsor future events, please talk to me and I'll tell you what we're doing and what our plans for. I know you're not here to listen to me, so I want to introduce and turn over the microphone to Angela Green, our gallery coordinator, so that they can introduce our special guest speakers tonight.
Thanks, Jim, and thanks for the kind words. This has been a 2-year project, working overtime, both of us on this, and we're just thrilled beyond, we can't even tell you how thrilled we are to have the Curtis photographs here, to have Katrina's beadwork here, to have the Gabriels here. It's just the thrill of a lifetime. So I want to remind you that tomorrow, John and Colleen will be here speaking for at least an hour, if not more, and you can ask questions. It'll be a formal sit down that will start at 5 o'clock. So if you're here tonight, you got a little blue ticket that lets you in tomorrow without an admission charge to come to hear them speak at length tomorrow about Curtis and family stories. And we've heard some, and they're just outstanding. And so you won't want to miss that if you don't have to. Tomorrow at 5. Our doors do open at 4. So if you want to come early to snag your seat, feel free to do that because we are open to the public at 4. And then we close tomorrow night at 7. So if you have friends or somebody that wants to come along or just come to see the exhibit, that'd be wonderful. I'm going to introduce Katrina Mitten, our beadwork artist. She is a member of the Miami tribe of Oklahoma. She lives in Huntington, Indiana. She has outstanding beadwork that she might tell you, but I'm going to tell you some of the places she has her things are the Smithsonian Art Gallery, which is beyond belief that someone in our area is so wonderful with her beadwork. She's in the Heard Museum coming up. Some of the pieces that are in this exhibit have been accepted in the Heard Museum in Arizona. And she has things in the Idle Jorg, that's in Indianapolis. So some of you have probably been there because that's closer to us. Her work is at the back. Her work is on the pedestals upstairs and downstairs. She'll be walking around after she gives her talk. You can informally talk with her about her beautiful items. So I'm going to hand it over to Katrina.
Well, thank you, and I'm really excited to be here when Angela contacted me about my work, adding a little complementary color to these sepia tone images. I thought how wonderful of an idea, and I just got done saying to some friends and family of mine that are here that my pieces next to these photographs, they look even better. My pieces look awesome next to these photographs, so I'm very honored for that. I am a citizen of the Miami tribe of Oklahoma. I've lived my entire life here in Indiana. I come from a few famous people that you might know of if you're in this area. Chief Little Turtle was my fourth great uncle. His mother, Tecumseh, was my fourth great grandmother. Her son was Chief Richardville, which was my third great grandfather. And then his daughter, Catherine, married our next principal chief, Chief LaFontaine, and they were my great great grandparents. And my family lived in the home at the Forks of the Wabash in Huntington, just at 9 and 24, which is now a historic park. My family lived there from the time it was built until just before my mother was born. So I had that connection of knowing the history of my people. And I feel that we kind of joked around that there are, not joking, that's their opinion, but there are Native people who are sad about these photographs because they have very strong feelings about that time, and it's their feelings and they're naturally allowed to have those feelings. But myself, any images that I have of my people were paintings done by George Winter and a couple other painters or people that would do sketching. So I didn't get to see as much as you can see in these photos and what's being represented in these photos. So I would have loved to have someone like Edward Curtis and the technology of taking photographs to have been here in Indiana in the 1830s, before the 1840s, before my people were removed from Indiana, taken out into Oklahoma. Because at that time we were already wearing a lot of European clothing, and a lot of our traditional things were being put aside because we were assimilating into a dominant culture to survive. And my family was one of 5 that were allowed to stay in Indiana, so we really had to assimilate into the European way of living and way of dressing in order to survive. So when I was about 12 years old, I had this feeling that I wanted to, I believe you're born an artist, no matter what your medium is. And those media, that will change throughout your life sometimes, or you might stick to the same thing. And I decided at 12 I wanted to learn something that would go along with my culture and help me to hold that and be able to speak to my culture and about my people and my family. So I sat down, it was the 70s, kind of tells my age. I sat down and on a spring break, and I made my own loom and started doing some very stereotypical designs of Thunderbird and, you know, black and white and the intricate diamonds that are red and yellow. And I made a really nice strip. Took me 2 weeks to do it, and put it on the back of a fringed leather jacket. I was the cool Indian girl in town. I had my long hair then, braids, but it was very stereotypical. So as I got older and I started having children, which I have 5, my daughter's here, and my oldest son especially, when I had him, I realized that they needed to have knowledge amongst their peers of who we were as Native people, about our culture. So I started going into school systems and talking to them about our culture. And as I did that, my beadwork kind of grew along with that. And then in 1999, I entered my first juried competition. It was at the Idle Jorg, and I received an award that year, my very first show. So that kind of got me going, really. I said, wow, I can do this. I don't have to do just going to powwows and doing pieces for fellow Native people, for dancers. I can go out and this is recognized as an art. A lot of people want to say it's a craft, but it is an art. So I've been doing that ever since 1999, and I do have pieces in the Smithsonian. Actually, I have 3 pieces in 2 different Smithsonians in Washington, D.C. At the Remington Gallery, I have 2 pieces, and at the National Native American Museum, I have 1. So to me, that's leaving my mark for my children, my grandchildren. When I'm gone, they can go and say, that's my grandmother. I made that. And I get the feeling in talking about these images here that's why I believe, in my heart, for some reason, I believe that's why they cooperated with Edward Curtis in getting these images taken. You can tell if I'm looking at these images, these weren't people being forced to have their picture taken. These are pictures to me that possibly they're saying they'll take my picture and I will live on, and calling in shadow catcher, and they're catching their shadow. I think it's a wonderful, wonderful thing, and the book is awesome. And I love hearing about the people and the people who inspired me for some of my work. So I think that's about enough. Thank you.
Thanks, Katrina, and we will be putting on our social media that Katrina will be back to do a beading demonstration. I think it's a piece that she has, work in progress, that she may bring with her, and so you'll actually get to see her doing some of the bead work, and she'll talk some more that day. It'll probably be an hour presentation sometime in March, so look for that coming up. We'll post it everywhere that we can. And so now the big moment, we get to introduce the Graybills, and oh my gosh, they got here last night, and it was like a dream of a lifetime for us to meet them, and it seems like they're old friends already. I took them to the Auburn Cord-Duesenberg Museum today, and they loved it, and
Wow.
Yeah, John was wild because he was in the auto industry for a while, or for most of his life, so it's spectacular to have him here, and I'm just gonna let him do introductions. They're from Colorado, so they flew all the way here for this, which is awesome. And you can hear them again tomorrow night at more in depth. But I will introduce them now, John and Colleen Gabriel.
Katrina, thank you so much for sharing that. That was wonderful.
Oh, you're welcome.
Yes, we need more of that in the world. Thank you. So I think as everybody gets on the great-grandson of Edward Curtis who did these photographs here, I started the Curtis Legacy Foundation in early 2019. You can read more about what we do on our website, curtislegacyfoundation.org, if you're interested. And so tonight I wanted to share a little bit with you, maybe some stuff that you won't hear tomorrow night. So you guys that are here tonight get the double whammy. So as we know, Curtis started in Seattle, and he and his dad moved to Seattle in, 1886?
6 or 7, yeah.
Yeah.
All the numbers
Early
start to
on.
mix together.
Seattle
1800s.
at this time is booming. It is the fastest growing city in the continent. It's got a seaport that's starting to blossom, and this is the place to be. And Curtis and his dad end up here after an extremely hard winter, killed spring crops. The family was destitute, no money. True definition of dirt poor. And are we all going to jail now? Anyway, so he and his dad moved there. They go to a town out on the peninsula called Sydney, which then later became Port Orchard. And they hand build a log cabin, homestead on 158 some acres. They've got trees, chickens, all that kind of stuff. And so they get everything ready and they send home to bring the rest of the family out. And the rest of the family comes, and Johnson Curtis dies 3 days later from pneumonia. Curtis finds himself having to support the family again. This is something he's done all through his life. He ends up giving up his education, and what you see on the walls is the product of Curtis's vision and some burning desire that he had. Only with a 6th grade education, he does all this. But he eventually ends up buying into a portrait studio in Seattle, moves from then Sydney over to the Seattle area and starts a photographic studio. And he has 3 studios before the third one was finally his own with his name on it. And all across the country, he's headline news. This is the place to go to get your portrait taken. He's very well received. He's doing dignitaries. Anybody gets their portrait done by Curtis in the Curtis studio in Seattle. I think old man Curtis is kind of bored. Smile, click. Well, and they didn't smile so much then because of long exposure, but I think he gets kind of tired of this. And so he starts venturing out and spends a fair amount of time on Mount Rainier, becomes an amazing mountaineer. And he's climbing up and down Rainier, and he's taking pictures all over the place. A lot of those photos we don't see anymore. When he and his brother Ashel separated, Curtis kept all the Native American work, Ashel kept everything else. And so that's mostly in Ashel's archives. But there's a story I wanted to share about a picture that he did up on Mount Rainier. And so when he starts out, he's using a 14 by 17 view camera, and he also has this mammoth 18 by 22 inch negative size view camera. This thing is monstrous. It's heavy. The tripod and camera are heavy, the glass plates are heavy. And so he's gonna pack this thing up Mount Rainier to take some pictures. So he gets a hold of a local farmer and hires a donkey to haul his camera and gear up the mountain. And so Curtis and the donkey and the gear, they go up, and they're up, I don't know, Snoqualmie Glacier or one of these glaciers, and he takes this picture and packs up the donkey to go back down. Next thing he knows, this donkey's sitting on its ass, sliding down the mountain with his camera gear and glass plate negatives on there. Old man Curtis is like, oh my goodness. So he finally gets back down, and the donkey's fine, the camera's fine, his glass plates are in good shape. And he goes back to the farmer, and he says, what's with your donkey? I've never seen this. And the guy says, I trained it to do that. He does it all the time. Yeah, crazy. But in addition to Mount Rainier, Curtis starts venturing out onto the shoreline around Seattle and starts taking pictures of the natives. And he does the clam digger, which is Princess Angeline, the mussel gatherer, photo, I think I saw it in here called Homeward on Puget Sound. Yep. And these are some of the early photographs that he did prior to starting this North American Indian project. And I believe, again, he's doing this because he's kind of bored in the portrait studio. It's the same thing, sit, pose, click. I would get bored with that. And so he starts doing this, and he sees something else with the Native Americans that the rest of the Seattle area doesn't. Remember, this is the fastest growing city in America. And all the colonial, or some people call them the boat people, because they came here from boats, and are pushing the Duwamish out of the Seattle area. And the Duwamish are being displaced. They're not given any place to live. They're called savages. The common sense is that they have no culture, no religion, no social structure. But Curtis does see something different and starts on this amazing project. In Seattle, they had I think it was Ordinance 5, and this is early on, outlawed natives from being on the Seattle streets after dark. It was against the law for them to be in their own homeland. It was against the law for them to wear their native dress, speak in their native tongue, practice their native religion. It was against the law for them to be a native, and they were being pushed out of the city. And at one point, there was even a bounty on Native American, well, they called it bad Indian scalps for $5. Outrageous, and so anybody could take a scalp and say, yeah, this was a bad scalp, and they get paid for this. And that's the culture of the colonists at the time. They didn't recognize the Native community. And Curtis, thank goodness, saw that there was something here that had to be recorded. And he sets upon about a 32-year project to almost single-handedly document those natives still in what he called a primitive state, which is west of the Mississippi, from Mexico north up through Alaska. And he does some 80-some tribes, photographing them, documenting all aspects of their way of life. The children, the men, the women, their religion, their marriage, their politics, everything he could. And there's a photograph on the wall as you go up the stairs of Alexander Upshaw. And Alexander Upshaw was a native that went to the Carlisle School for Indians. And this is a school, a boarding school, and it's been in the news quite a bit lately, and I think we're only touching the tip of the iceberg here. But the policy was to beat the Indian out and save the man. So Alexander Upshaw went there and graduated. He was a very intelligent human being, and he single-handedly got Curtis into most of the tribes early on as an interpreter. He would lay the groundwork and say, this white man, this boat person, he's okay, let him do his work. And Alexander also took copious notes when he would go in prior to Curtis entering the area. And it ends sadly. It's so tragic. Alexander Upshaw had a problem like a lot of natives trying to cope with the stress of what had happened to their way of life. And he had a problem with alcohol. And he ends up getting just the snot kicked out of him down in Texas someplace. And they throw him in a jail. And he dies in jail, suffocating on his own blood and vomit. And it broke Curtis's heart. This was a trusted friend that watched after his children. And he had a wonderful relationship with Alexander. It was really hard for Curtis to deal with this. And so with that,
On a lighter note.
Yes. And so I'll stop here because I have so much more I want to talk about that we're going to save for tomorrow night, but a lot of family stories like the donkey sliding down and some fun stuff that we'll share. And before I hand this over, did you want to say anything?
I was just going to talk about the book. Do you want to start it?
You can or I can.
Okay.
I was going to say,
Okay.
yeah, go
You
ahead.
should, you're
I'll-
welcome.
So a couple of years ago, we had to move John's parents into an assisted living facility. And so we start cleaning out the house. Well, we're shocked at what we didn't know. Well, John's family didn't know what was in the house. And so home came with us some notebooks that we had 2 notebooks that were Alaska images. We have a project that we're working on called the Descendants Project, where we're finding descendants of the images, the people in the images that Curtis took, and we're photographing them with the same camera system, glass plate negatives, 1800s lens, the whole deal, and then we interview them and tell their story of what it's like to be Native today. So we're kind of bringing the past into the future. And yes, we want to show people that they're still here. They're still alive and well, and their cultures are growing, and they're doing some really exciting things. So anyway, we start going through this, and we brought out the notebooks for one of the descendants, or family member of the descendant that we had photographed. And she said, I've never seen that picture of my grandfather. I've never seen that picture of my grandmother. And so I started comparing. We found we had 200 unpublished images just from Alaska. So I narrowed those down to 100 that weren't similar to each other or similar to something that had already been published. So then we also took Curtis's journal, which he had never journaled in his 30-some years of photographing the North American Indian Project. And we took his journal and his daughter Beth's journal and added it as the narrative to the book. And so it takes you through a chronological steps of his summer that he spent in Alaska photographing for the last volume. So that's in our new book. So these images, other than the people that have already, the book came out in July. And so the only people that have ever seen these images have been people bought the book or went to the Muskegon, Michigan Art Museum and saw our exhibit there this summer, or this fall, I should say. So we do have books available tonight. Part of the proceeds do go to the museum here. So you're helping both us and them. The proceeds for us helps us continue on our Descendants Project and to just be able to do these kind of talks. And part of the proceeds go to, we're sending a copy of this book to every public library in Alaska so that Alaska natives can see these and they don't have to pay for them. We're also working on a project where we'll have a pop-up exhibit that will travel Alaska so that the natives there can see their ancestors, and that will also be funded through the proceeds of the book. So we do have a couple projects there going, as well as helping the museum here. So it's many-fold how you help contribute. So we have books. We also have a calendar for 2022. If you're interested in that, we have bookmarks and we have a few stickers left. So you're welcome to take those free. And just keep us in mind and come back and see us tomorrow and we'll tell you more of the story.
Colleen had mentioned libraries, and she mentioned it to me actually when we talked a few weeks ago, I guess it was, when they were here dropping off books. The libraries in all of DeKalb County and part of Noble County and Steuben have all purchased books, and I'm really proud of that fact that has happened. The universities in Fort Wayne and beyond are purchasing some copies of this book, so that makes it really important. So if you know a library or an organization or anybody that would like to put it in a collection or have it in their workplace, let us know. We'll get it to them. We'll do whatever we can to get this out there. It is a gorgeous book. I did go see the Unpublished Alaska exhibit in Muskegon. It's gone now, but stay tuned. You might see it sometime soon around here.
And Allen County, Allen County also.
Oh yes, and tonight, Allen County Public Library Representative Stacy Stamos is here tonight, and they bought 3 copies, so it's also in Fort Wayne's library system, or will be very soon. So we're really glad about that, and I will turn over to Jim.
I'll just finish off real quickly. I just want to once again thank James Foundation, Three Rivers Credit Union, Leitner Law Firm, and Auburn Arts Commission. They're working at the table. And Leanne, you're around here somewhere. You see here most of our openings. So thank you for all the volunteers. The proceeds do benefit both of us. That's all that we have left of the calendars. Mm-hmm. The rest 5 left. And we sold a lot to the area library. So if you want a book, I would suggest getting it pretty soon because I anticipate us selling out of books. So once again, thank you both for coming. The monumental day. We're so thrilled. Thank all of you, and thank all of our supporters, and enjoy the evening.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jim.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Just go on and on and on.